a black desert of lava. A finale where the island itself seems to pass judgment. In Apple TV Plus's series Chief of War, Season 1 ends with fire, ash, and a name that won't sit still. Kaʻiana, survivor, insider, future threat. Herein, Chief of War versus history, Kaʻiana's last stand. We put the show on one side and the record on the other. What the series fuses into one eruption, the sources split across years. A disaster in 1790, a killing in 1791, and a reckoning in 1795. This is Chief of War versus history, Kaʻiana's last stand. Stories have heat. Chief of War gives us lava and loyalties, a finale where the island itself seems to speak. We come to it with respect, for the drama on screen and for the record kept in ink and ash. Here we set the show beside the sources, not to scold, but to listen. We follow paper before spectacle, journals, letters, Hawaiian language newspapers, and the footprints pressed into the Kaʻu ash in 1790. And we choose our words with care, kapu, heiau, ali'i, names that carry centuries. We speak them as they deserve, Kilauea, Kaʻu, Puʻukoholā, Nuʻuanu. This isn't a takedown, it's a conversation between cinema and sources. When the series lands close, we'll say so. When it compresses or moves pieces, we'll trace the seam. If an explanation can carry the weight, it stands. If it can't, we'll mark the gap and keep the wonder. With that spirit, we begin. Chapter 1. How Season 1 ends. The stage is a black desert of cooled lava, heat wavering at the horizon, and politics laid bare in the open. Lines harden on the ground the way they have already hardened in the heart. Chiefs gather with names that carry weight. Retainers measure loyalties by the heartbeat, and ash hangs in the air like a warning that refuses to settle. At the edge of this arena stands Kaʻiana, charismatic, worldly, stubbornly alive. He carries the glamour of distance and the gravity of experience. Foreign decks under his feet, new weapons in his hands, rooms where whispers travel in more than one language. Close to power and closer to danger, he reads weather and intrigue with the same practiced calm. He is neither king nor chorus, but a hinge on which larger doors might swing. He is here to win the day, or at least to keep tomorrow open. Opposing forces brace. On one side, Keōua holds the line, proud, wounded, unwilling to let his name be folded into anyone else's song. On the other, Kamehameha's ranks steady themselves with a discipline that says more than armor can. The distance between the two sides is short enough for insults and long enough for prophecy. The land itself feels hostile. Black shards that cut without moving, fissures that breathe, a fine powder that claims the mouth and stubbornly refuses the lungs. Then the island answers. A hush gathers where drums once lived. Wind shifts. Birds leave the sky. Heat bends the air until the familiar turns doubtful. What sounded like breath begins to sound like a word, and the word is move. Battle fires in bursts, charges that collapse into grapples, volleys that unravel into smoke. Ash behaves like weather. Men wrap cloth across their mouths, not as ritual, but as reflex. What began as a clash of lines becomes a struggle against a field that insists on judging the fight as much as hosting it. Flame lifts along cracked horizons. Cinders erase distance. Thunder takes the place of speech. Gray overlays the face, then red. The eruption refuses to play the part of scenery. It presses forward as verdict. In this telling, Keōua's fate arrives with the ash, leader and symbol at once, his death folding the fight into a single, enormous punctuation mark. Orders turn into prayers, resolve turns into awe, and the island seems to speak with a voice no chief can match. Kaʻiana survives. Not cleanly and not heroically, survives. Eyes stung, skin mapped by sparks, voice sanded down to a whisper. He walks out of the day with the kind of memory that never fully cools. Whether he lived by instinct, luck, or some private oath with experience remains unspoken. What remains certain is the mark this leaves on him. He will carry the heat in ways that are visible and ways that are not. Water resets the scene. Celebration breaks on one shore, victory sung with salt still on the lips. On another, oaths harden in a quiet room, a blade laid flat, a promise that needs no audience to be dangerous. The board resets. Names do not change, but their meanings do. The same syllables begin to weigh differently in the mouth. The same faces are measured by new angles of light. Kaʻiana's name circulates with a double edge. Admiration speaks it first, his skill at sea, his comfort with weapons and discipline, his sense for the larger map. Calculation speaks it next. How to keep him close, how to keep him contained, how to use his reach without letting it reach too far. He is welcome at the table and tested with every cup. People want him near because he makes the room feel larger and the future feel nearer. They fear him for exactly the same reason. Hands become the language of the aftermath. A strategist traces a coastline and finds an advantage that wasn't visible yesterday. A priest seals a blessing that is also a warning. A warrior smooths ash from a blade he swears he cleaned already. Mouths follow with words that do not always mean themselves. Congratulations that arrive with conditions. Condolences that travel too smoothly to be entirely human. Every gesture repeats the same truth. Peace is a costume change, not a change of heart. The island offers omens for anyone willing to see them. A fisher keeps smoking after the ground has gone quiet. A sail appears where no ship should be yet. A dog refuses a familiar threshold as if it has learned something the household has not. The day looks finished, but behaves like a door that was closed gently, not locked. Kaʻiana walks the edge of celebration as if it might be a cliff. He knows how quickly a song turns into an argument, and how quickly an argument turns into a list of names. He knows admiration and fear can drink from the same cup without breaking it. He knows the talent that earns invitations also invites ambushes. He moves as if the room itself were taking notes. He is given a moment alone, or close enough to alone for the heart to steady. Ash still rides the hairline like a crown that didn't get the message. Flame flickers in the eye, not as ornament, but as proof that the day still lives inside him. The words he might speak do not matter. The island has said enough for now. What remains is a rhythm rather than an answer. Drums, then no drums. Cheers, then a silence that counts by threes. Somewhere a canoe pushes into dark water without torches. Somewhere else, a list of names is folded twice and hidden in a sleeve. Each small act suggests that the next large act has already begun to breathe. The promise is not peace. The promise is more war. Alliances reforged, a king's rise accelerated, debts called in with the kind of interest that grows overnight. In the middle of it stands a question that looks like a man. Kaʻiana, alive and admired, carrying knowledge that others envy and fear, and clearly standing in the sights of those who believe he knows too much. The heat still moves above the rock as if the day refuses to cool. The battlefield shrinks in the mind until it becomes one black shape among many, another stone added to a necklace of old ones. The island is not done speaking. Hold this picture in memory. Next comes the record that will test it. The years, the places, and the words that do not burn. Chapter 2. The Historical Record. We set the show beside the sources and let each keep its strength. The camera's lava spectacle is vivid, but the paper trail is precise. 3 separate acts anchor this story. When they stand apart, the arc of unification and Kaʻiana's fate become clearer. Beat A. 1790. The Kaʻū Desert and Kilauea's deadly episode. The record for 1790 is a volcanic disaster, not a battlefield execution. A powerful Kilauea episode pushed pyroclastic surges and choking ash across parts of the Kaʻū Desert. Men on the move, scouts, messengers, fighters, were caught in air that burned before blades could meet. The ground behaved like breath. Visibility fell to a moving curtain. Hundreds died. The most haunting trace is physical. Footprints pressed into the Kaʻū ash, preserved in place, testimony to movement through danger, rather than a staged clash of lines. Hawaiian accounts and later geological work agree on the character of the event. Sudden, lethal, and indifferent to allegiance. Keōua Kuʻahuʻula, Kamehameha's principal rival on Hawaii Island at this time, survives the 1790 disaster. It cripples his strength and complicates his logistics, but it does not deliver his death. Meanwhile, the balance of power is shifting for other reasons too. Increased access to firearms and cannon through foreign contact. The arrival of men who know how to drill formations and handle guns under stress. And the gradual spread of maritime knowledge among chiefly courts. In this same window of time, foreign incidents tilt the technical playing field. Traders and their ships introduce muskets and artillery more reliably. Advisors familiar with naval discipline begin to matter. The combination of Hawaiian leadership and imported methods becomes a force multiplier. Nature injures, it does not decide. Beat B. 1791, Puʻukoholā Heiau and the killing of Keōua. The next act is ceremonial and political, not geological. In 1791, Kamehameha convenes power at Kauai on Hawaii Island, near a massive heiau he has ordered built, Puʻukoholā. Prophecy and strategy meet in stone. The heiau rises by hand and line, rock carried in human chains, an architecture that declares intention long before any ceremony is performed. Keōua approaches under terms of parley. Accounts agree that he is killed near the landing, and that his body is offered at Puʻukoholā Heiau. Some traditions add details about actions he took to alter his ritual status. Sources differ on the sequence and meaning of those moments. What does not differ is the outcome. Keōua's death happens here, in the shadow of a temple, and within a grammar of rule that binds sacrifice, legitimacy, and consolidation of Hawaii Island. There is no eruption on this day, no black desert. The power on display is human. Alliances, priests, kapu, and the deliberate use of ceremony to harden a political claim. From this vantage, the show's fusion of disaster and death turns 2 distinct endings: terror in 1790 and finality in 1791, into one cinematic blow. The record asks us to keep them separate, so that agency remains visible. The earth injures. Leaders decide. Beat C. 1795. Kaʻiana's defection and the Battle of Nuʻuanu, Oahu. By the mid-1790s, the struggle moves beyond Hawaii Island. Kamehameha's forces have already demonstrated reach and discipline in earlier campaigns. Training with firearms, using cannon effectively from shore and from double-hulled canoes, and coordinating fleets with growing confidence. Against this backdrop, court tensions around Kaʻiana widen. Kaʻiana is a high-ranking ali'i with a reputation for travel and cosmopolitan skill. He has sailed with foreigners, seen ports beyond Hawaii, and returned with weapons, artisans, and ideas. For a time, he stands close to Kamehameha. Later, he is sidelined and feels it. When Kamehameha assembles the Great Fleet to move on Oahu, Kaʻiana defects to Kalani Kupule's side. Sources differ on the exact moments that follow, but converge on the essentials. Early in the Battle of Nuʻuanu, Kaʻiana is killed. Some say by artillery fire directed by gunners trained by foreign advisors, others by close action as positions shift. His death matters because he carried more than rank. He understood the new grammar of war, muskets drilled in sequence, the timing of volleys, the value of terrain under fire. Remove that understanding early, and the line that needs it begins to fray. Nuʻuanu's terrain does the rest. The valley narrows, the Pali cliffs rise, and a retreat becomes a funnel. As pressure mounts, defenders are driven upward toward the precipice. The rout at the Pali becomes the image that endures. Kalani Kupule flees and is later captured. Oahu falls. Kamehameha's unification accelerates from intent to momentum. The role of foreign expertise is plain but not dominant. Hawaiian leadership sets the goals and chooses the ground. Advisors and weapons amplify capacity. Names like John Young and Isaac Davis appear in multiple accounts as men who help organize firepower, maintain guns, and steady formations. Their presence underscores how quickly chiefly courts absorb and deploy outside techniques. What wins is not a single cannon shot. It is command, logistics, and will. Clean timeline. Keep these acts distinct. Year 1790. Kaʻū Desert, Kilauea episode. Lethal ash and surges kill many of Keōua's men during movement. Keōua survives. The event hurts capacity, but does not decide leadership. Year 1791. Puʻukoholā Heiau, Kauai. Keōua is killed near the landing. His body is offered at the heiau. Kamehameha consolidates Hawaii Island through ceremony and statecraft. Year 1795. Nuʻuanu, Oahu. Kaʻiana defects to Oahu's side and is killed early in the battle. Kalani Kupule's defense collapses. Kamehameha's path to unification opens. What the show gains by merging, and what the record protects. The effect is powerful and emotionally legible. The cost is clarity. When the volcanic image swallows the heiau, the audience loses sight of agency. Who chose, who ordered, who accepted responsibility. Keeping the events distinct restores that line of sight. Names and language. Precision is part of respect. We keep Okina and Kahako where they belong. Kilauea, Kaʻū, Puʻukoholā, Nuʻuanu. We use kapu, heiau, ali'i with their meanings intact. Pronunciation guides and on-screen spellings help without slowing the story. With the record clear, the next act points to Oahu's campaign in detail, how alliances shifted after Puʻukoholā, how fleets were provisioned and coordinated, how artillery and muskets were drilled, and how Kaʻiana's decision shaped the opening minutes of Nuʻuanu. Season 2, at its best, would live here, in logistics, choices, and the speed at which a kingdom learns to move. Chapter 3. What Season 2 should cover. If the series follows the record, the next arc lives on Oahu. After Puʻukoholā in 1791, power hardens on Hawaii Island while preparations widen. Fleets assembled, guns maintained, allies courted. and supply moved where sail and current will carry it. Foreign advisors steady the new tools, but Hawaiian leadership sets the pace. The question is no longer whether Kamehameha can project force. It is where and when he chooses to land it. Kaʻiana stands at the hinge of that choice. He is a high-ranking ali'i with ocean mileage, a man who has seen other ports and brought skills home. Ships handled with discipline, muskets drilled in sequence, cannon kept serviceable under pressure. For a season he is close to Kamehameha, then the circle tightens without him. Slights real or perceived court suspicion, and competing visions of how to use foreign knowledge widen the crack. When the great fleet gathers for Oahu, Kaʻiana decides. Calculation, not caricature. He moves to Kalani Kupule's side to shape the battle rather than be sidelined by it. The campaign deserves the texture of logistics. Canoes and transports do not simply appear at Waikiki. They are provisioned, repaired, and staged. Powder is kept dry. Shot is measured and paired to bore. Matches and flints are protected from salt. Chiefs count days of food and days of wind. Scouts watch channels for weather first and enemies second. Advisors who understand gunnery help coastal guns find elevation, while Hawaiian commanders decide where those guns will matter. A season that shows this work honors the speed at which a kingdom learns to move like a fleet, then the foothold. Landings on Oahu push a front inland toward Nuʻuanu. Lines respond with a grammar that has changed. Volleys almost rhythmic, positions chosen for fields of fire instead of spectacle, reserves held where ground narrows. The old strengths do not vanish, courage, chant, the authority of chiefs. But the battlefield now punishes any formation that forgets to breathe in time with gunpowder. This is where Kaʻiana's choice carries weight. He knows the new grammar and tries to make it speak for Oahu. Early in the fighting, he is killed. Accounts split between cannon fire directed by trained gunners and a closer strike in the confusion of shifting ground. Either way, a keystone goes missing. A commander who can steady lines under fire is taken out in the first act, and with him goes a margin Oahu cannot afford to lose. Nuʻuanu gives the rest of the lesson. Valleys fold in. The Pali cliffs rise. Retreat becomes a funnel that sorts discipline from panic. Pressure climbs, positions tilt, and men are driven up toward the precipice. The image that endures, bodies over the Pali, belongs here, not to lava. It is the end of Oahu's defense and the opening of Kamehameha's road to unification. The aftermath should feel like consequence rather than epilogue. Kalani Kupule flees and is captured. Oahu is secured. Key captains and craftsmen are absorbed instead of discarded. Commanders who understand the new mix of canoe, sail, and shore battery begin to think past a single island. The map changes tone. What was ambition begins to look like momentum. To the west, Kauai holds out under Kaumuali'i, a reminder that unification is a chain with more than one link. The eventual solution there is diplomacy rather than blood, another reason to keep war and statecraft distinct in the telling. Kaʻiana's legacy should split the room on purpose. To some, he is the defector who endangered unification. To others, he is a cosmopolitan innovator cut down too soon. A chief who saw the shape of tomorrow's battles more clearly than most. A season that lets both readings breathe will feel larger and truer. The point is not to flatten him into a single lesson, but to show how much a kingdom could gain and lose by learning fast. Season 2, at its best, would thread 5 movements. The pressure that builds after Puʻukoholā, the decision that moves Kaʻiana off Kamehameha's course, the landing and inland push on Oahu, the early death that changes the math at Nuʻuanu, and the aftermath that turns one victory into a road toward many. Keep the names right. Kilauea, Kaʻū, Puʻukoholā, Nuʻuanu, and the choices visible. Let agencies sit where it belongs, in councils, on decks, and under banners that the wind will test. Carry forward one habit: facts first, mystery intact. When the record holds, let it stand. Where it thins, mark the edge and move with care. In that space, a second season can respect the paper and still keep the island speaking.
We set the show beside the record and kept both in view. The spectacle gave us a single eruption. The sources gave us 3 acts: 1790 in the Kaʻū Desert, 1791 at Puʻukoholā Heiau, and 1795 at Nuʻuanu. When those years stand apart, agency comes back into focus. Nature injures, leaders decide, campaigns resolve. Kaʻiana sits at the hinge. He survives the disaster the show turns into a finale, then walks into the politics that history places on Oahu. His choice, his death, and the speed of Kamehameha's unification mean more when they're tied to dates, places, and names spoken with care. Kilauea, Kaʻū, Puʻukoholā, Nuʻuanu. The point isn't to drain the drama. It's to keep the map honest while we keep the wonder. Facts first, mystery intact. This is Chief of War versus History, Kaʻiana's Last Stand. Tell us in the comments, what did the show get right? Where did it compress or move events? What should Season 2 cover in depth? Oahu's campaign, Kaʻiana's defection, Nuʻuanu in full. Share your take and your sources below. Aloha kako, mahalo nui loa no kanana ana. Ahui ho kako.